Today we're going to be breaking down UFC 291 with timestamps, by the way, so if you want to skip to a particular fight, timestamps are in the pinned comment and the description down below if you would like to use them. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with too many YouTube channels, and welcome back to another full card breakdown and prediction video, this time like I said, for UFC 291. This card is absolutely stacked. I cannot wait to talk about it. Drop your picks down below and let's get started. Moving on to the first fight, and guys, they are starting off with a banger. You cannot miss this fight. We have Matthew Semelsberger versus Uros Medic. This is a very, very good fight. So Matthew Semelsberger coming off of a loss. However, he looked very, very good in this loss against Jeremiah Wells. There was a couple times where people thought that Jeremiah Wells was down and out. Looked extremely, extremely good. Before that, beat Jake Matthews in a fight where everybody was very high, myself included, on Jake Matthews. I thought Jake Matthews was going to beat Matthew Semelsberger, so he looked really, really good in these last two fights. And honestly, guys, spoiler alert, that's why I'm picking him. I love the way, even in his loss, okay, 2 months ago, he looked great in that fight. I liked him a lot. Now, the only hiccup he had was Alex Morono recently, and Alex Morono, I think, is absolutely fantastic. Very, very underrated fighter, so I'm liking what I see from Matthew Semelsberger here. He's fighting against Uros Medic. Now, Uros is a very, very powerful and technical striker. The reason why I'm not going to pick him is because we haven't seen enough of him yet. Like, if you go back, you'll see some, like, really nice KOs that he's had, but at the end of the day, who has he really fought? But then he fought in the Contender Series. He's looked very good in the Contender Series. Coming to the UFC, he looked really, really nice again, but then he ran into a problem in Jalen Turner. Now, Jalen Turner, not everybody is so high on anymore, myself included, so I'm like, how much do you really, really want to take that? I still think Jalen Turner's a good fighter, but I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to think anymore, Jalen Turner, the competition level. So, but even after the Jalen Turner fight, he bounced back against Omar Morales, looked very good, got another knockout. So this dude is a technical striker and has very, very nice power behind it. I believe that Matthew Semelsberger will, I would imagine this fight would be continuing standing up, because both fighters are going to want to strike with each other. Matthew Semelsberger might want to get a little bit closer with him. I would imagine, from what I've seen from Matthew Semelsberger, and I feel like he can just handle whatever Medic throws at him. That's what I feel like. I don't know, man. I can just see that coming, and I see Matthew Semelsberger winning a very nice decision. I haven't seen enough from Uros Medic to make me really say, okay, I'm ready to pick this guy. I think Matthew Semelsberger might be a little bit too tough for him, and that's why I'm going to pick him to win this fight. I really like the way he's looked in his last couple fights, and I'm riding the momentum of Matthew Semelsberger. Moving on to the next fight, we have Miranda Maverick taking on Priscila Cachoeira. Now, guys, I have no idea what to think about this fight, to be honest, because it all depends with Miranda Maverick. Can she find a takedown? And she's taking this fight on short notice. I don't recall how short notice this fight is. I want to say it's like a couple weeks, but I could be wrong about that. Don't hold my word for this one, okay? Miranda Maverick coming off of a really, really rough loss 1 month ago where she got absolutely annihilated. Took a lot of damage, okay? And I'm not so hot on her coming out on short notice 1 month later. That's a problem. The other problem with Miranda Maverick is that if she doesn't get the takedown, she loses. She has horrible striking, but then again, she's taking on Priscila Cachoeira, who also has very poor striking. Okay? This is why I don't really know what to think. Can Miranda Maverick find the takedown? Can she lay on her? Can she find a submission? Maybe. Or she look for ground and pound. If you take a look at her last fights, you'll see with Miranda Maverick, she loses to half-decent fighters and then wins against people who most people would win against. You know what I mean? That's why it's really tough. I can't believe Miranda Maverick is a minus 340 favorite. That is ridiculous to me. That's insane. But Cachoeira, like, there's nothing to write home about. She had a nice win over Ariana Lipski, but she's 14-7 now. Like, how much do you really want to hold that? I know Lipski has looked good as of recent, but still, you don't know, like, and then before that, Jeon Kim, you know, like, there's nothing to write home about either of these fighters, their wins, their skill set. If you made me pick, I'd go with Zombie Girl. I don't like that Miranda Maverick just focuses on the takedown, but, like, Priscila doesn't have any striking herself. I don't know what to think about this. Absolutely don't bet on this unless you're looking for a wild underdog. That could always happen, right? But I don't know, man. I'm going to go with Zombie Girl, but I'm not so sure about this. Moving on to the next fight, we have Jake Matthews taking on UFC newcomer from the Contender Series, Darrius Flowers. Now, Darrius Flowers, okay, I'm not entirely sure how I want to really gauge him in the UFC yet, because I've watched him in LFA, and if you guys don't know, big LFA fan over here. I love LFA. I've been watching this guy in the LFA. So, he's looked good in the LFA, but I'm not so hot on his opponents. Of course, you know what I mean? That's always the problem when you come from LFA, though. But you can usually tell, like, when someone's special, and I can't tell yet. He's looked good. I'm not saying he's bad at all. Coming off the Contender Series, also looked very good. This guy has very, very nice power behind him with an underrated ground game, although he prefers to definitely strike, definitely slug. He's not like a wild fighter on the feet, but he definitely doesn't have the most technical boxing. Very powerful. He'll come forward. He'll be looking to knock you out. He's taking on Jake Matthews. Jake Matthews, I don't know what to think of him anymore. I don't know, because here's the thing. He's always looked like a promising prospect, right? Coming into the UFC, let's take a look at his last 5, of course. He's looked really good in these last fights, but then, not the best opponents. He had a loss against Sean Brady. At the time, everybody was saying, oh, Sean Brady is this absolutely amazing fighter, amazing killer. You know what I mean? But then Sean Brady, we found out that, in this last fight, I don't know, maybe the hype train wasn't so hype. But then, came back, got a wonderful win against Andre Fialho, and then he looked absolutely amazing. Destroyed him really, really quick. Looked amazing. And everybody was like, oh my God, Jake Matthews is back. Jake Matthews is a real deal. Jake Matthews is everything that we thought he was going to be. I was on that train. That's why I was so confident that he was going to beat a guy we just talked about in Matthew Semelsberger. I was like, oh my God, I'm so hot on Jake Matthews right now. And then he got absolutely annihilated. He lost bad. That was a horrible performance. I don't know if it was an off night, but the thing is, I think Jake Matthews is better than that performance. So Jake Matthews has been in there with better fighters. He's proven himself. That last performance worries me, but I am going to be picking Jake Matthews because I have not seen enough of Darrius Flowers right now where it makes me go, wow, is the KO possible? Of course it's possible. Flowers does have some really, really nice power, but I feel like Jake Matthews will be more technical. He's going to be looking to bounce back from win. The dude is very, very hyped up and he's very motivated. I like Jake Matthews in this fight. I think he'll be looking to bounce back from his recent loss, And I think Darrius Flowers is going to come to the UFC. And I could be remembering this wrong. Isn't this short notice? Guys, I'm so sorry if there's a lack of professionalism here, but this could be a short notice fight for Darrius Flowers. Why am I remembering that? That might be short notice. Sorry, don't know off the top of my head. Regardless, I will be picking Jake Matthews anyways. But this is something to note. If Darrius Flowers passes test with flying colors, maybe we need to look at him. But I like the technique in Matthews more. I think he has more options here, and I think he's going to win this fight. Moving on to the next fight, we have CJ Vergara versus Vinicius Salvador. Now, this is actually going to be a really good fight. Guys, this card, I'm so excited for. CJ Vergara in his last fight was so exciting. Daniel Lacerda, that was a great fight. He got an amazing win, displayed incredible heart. And in his last fight, it really, really made me pay attention to CJ Vergara, where I was like, wow, this dude can go through some wars, and this dude can come out on top. I am extremely impressed from what I've seen against Daniel Lacerda. But before that, you obviously see a very spotty UFC record coming off the Contender Series. He's won, he's lost, he's won, he's lost against okay opponents. That's the thing, too. This dude, oh man, I like him. But anyways, he's taking on Vinicius Salvador. Vinicius Salvador, there's not too much to say about him, to be honest with you. He's a striker, looks to strike, looks to finish you. It's pretty much that. He had a little bit of an issue in his last fight where he didn't lose really bad against Victor Altamirano, but then Victor Altamirano did get exposed, so, make of that what you will. I think that he is still a promising contender because he's looked very good even before, we've seen him come to the UFC. He's looked very good in what we've seen from his striking. If you take a look at any of his highlights, any of his last fights coming to the Contender Series, he looked fantastic, and then he ran into the problem. But he didn't look horrible in this fight, okay? I'm going to pick CJ Vergara in this fight. This fight's probably going to be standing. And I love guys, I honestly, from his last performance with Daniel Lacerda, I am never going to bet against CJ Vergara. Ever. I'm not saying I'm going to pick him to win, but I'm just like, my money is going nowhere against this dude. I love the heart that I saw from him. And before this fight, honestly, guys, I would have been like, I don't know, maybe, but CJ Vergara, man, he's looked really good in the last fight. I was very impressed. I'm not saying he was dominant in the last fight. If you've seen his last fight, he wasn't dominant at all, but I like his attitude. I like that he can't finish him. And I feel like if Salvador does get CJ Vergara in trouble, he'll survive. He'll come back. And I think he's going to win. My pick is CJ Vergara. I'm fairly confident in saying so. Moving on to the next fight, guys. This should be pretty interesting. We have Roman Kopylov versus Claudio Ribeiro. Here's why it's tough, okay? Because these two, I would imagine they would be striking. Okay, I'll go through it. Sorry. So Roman Kopylov, coming into the UFC. Before that, he's looked pretty good. But coming into the UFC, very, 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 very rough losses where he got exposed on the ground. This dude's ground game is a problem, and he needs to fix it. However, we haven't really seen his ground game because in his next 2 fights, he looked absolutely fantastic, looked like an incredible kickboxer. So here's the problem. He's lost 2 fights really bad with the ground game. He was exposed in that, but we don't know if he's fixed it because we haven't seen it. He just absolutely destroyed his opponents on his feet the next 2 fights. So he looked really bad in these 2 fights, looked very good in these 2 fights. Even in his last fight against Soriano, I was like, this guy might be someone to watch out for, okay? Because he bounced back with 2 really nice wins. He's taking on Claudio Ribeiro, where he is not the technical striker that Roman Kopylov is, but he is very powerful, very strong, very big, okay? So the potential for him to reach Kopylov is always there, but if you're taking a look at this from just a technical standpoint, like if these 2 fighters are in front of each other, they're probably going to want to strike. Kopylov should absolutely light him up. But Ribeiro is big, strong, powerful. He'll come forward, and I can see him landing on Kopylov, but I feel like Kopylov will be able to take whatever Ribeiro lands. Here's the problem, okay? So Claudio Ribeiro, coming into the UFC, he's looked very good, very powerful, nice knockouts, contender series, passed it with flying colors, right? But then, had a really rough loss. But then came back and just pretty much dominated his fight against Joseph Holmes just a month ago. He looked very nice in that fight. What worries me is we started to see some wrestling from Claudio Ribeiro, and he's strong enough where I could see him taking down Kopylov. It's not the most technical wrestling. It's not the most technical wrestling, grappling you've ever seen in the world, okay? He's just strong enough to do it. This guy's a big, powerful man. Kopylov has a horrible hole in his game. So is Ribeiro going to come in and wrestle? Because we rarely see it from him, okay? That's why I'm like, I'm not too sure. Tough fight. Guys, I'm saying 50-50 for this one. If you had a gun to my head, I would pick Ribeiro just because there's more options there. But Kopylov, if he doesn't wrestle, Kopylov's going to kill him, okay? That's why I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. 50-50. Gun to my head, I pick Ribeiro. Let me know what you think about this one down below. Moving on to the next fight, guys. This, I cannot tell you how much I am looking forward to this card because they have another fantastic fight in our hands. Trevin Giles, Gabriel Bonfim. You cannot miss this fight, okay? I have so much I want to talk about, and I don't know what to start with. I'll just start with how they've looked, okay? Trevin Giles is in his last 5. He's always looked good. This dude is an incredible fighter. He's great everywhere. He's a great athlete. He's big. He's strong. He's quick. This dude is great. I'm very high on him, okay? He's coming. He looked really good. Like pretty much every single time we've seen him, except recently, he's run into 2 rough losses, but take a look at who they're against. Those losses have aged incredibly well. Moving on. He looked even better in his next 2 fights, and especially against Preston Parsons. It was a close fight, but this dude looked fantastic. I am really high on Trevin Giles. He's taken on another guy who I am very high on, Gabriel Bonfim, part of the Bonfim brothers. I am very high on the Bonfim brothers. I've watched this guy for a very long time. Like I was talking about earlier, I am a very big LFA guy. Been watching this guy in the LFA. He is an incredible athlete, incredible fighter. He came into the Contender Series, looked amazing, and passed his UFC debut with flying colors. Okay, here's the thing. Everybody online has been talking about what a fraud the Bonfim brothers are. Ismael Bonfim is not his brother. Gabriel Bonfim is much better than he is. While I do believe they are both great, and I was very high on Ismael Bonfim. I'm very high on Ismael as well, and I still am. I still think he's a great fighter, although he looked bad in his last fight, okay? Gabriel is infinitely better. I think he's great. He's great everywhere, whether you want to talk ground, cardio, boxing, kickboxing. This dude can do everything. Very patient, very great. Trevin Giles, here's the problem. I'm so high on Trevin Giles as well. Guys, both of these fighters, I am convinced, could be champions. I really am. I am so high on both guys. We've seen Trevin Giles get KO'd before. Gabriel Bonfim, we haven't seen tested with a guy like Trevin Giles. Typically, guys, if they were fighting anyone else around their rankings, I would pick them. If Trevin Giles was fighting someone else, Gabriel Bonfim was fighting somebody else, okay? I would pick them to win. I think they're both incredible fighters, absolutely everywhere. I have to go with Gabriel Bonfim because he has looked much more dominant. He's better than his brother. Trevin Giles, we've seen lose before. It's possible. So I got to go with Bonfim just by an edge, but I think both fighters are really that good everywhere. I am so high on both of them. Typically, I would bet on a Bonfim. I still might, just because this dude's been on a roll. He keeps proving me right. Trevin Giles, though, I would not be shocked one little bit if he ended up getting this win. These guys could win anywhere, whether it's on the ground or on the feet. I don't know how this fight's going to go, okay? I'm going to pick Bonfim just because we keep seeing him winning, and we've seen Trevin Giles lose before. Maybe Bonfim can catch him. I don't know. Both these guys are great. I cannot wait to see this fight. Moving on to the next fight, we have the return of the Black Beast, Derrick Lewis, and I feel like it's been a little while since we've seen him. Hang on, 4 months ago? Oh, it wasn't that long ago, but I thought it was longer for some reason. Anyways, Derrick Lewis versus Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Guys, there's not much I need to sum up here, okay? Derrick Lewis has had a huge fall from grace, and he was never really that great of a fighter, okay? He just was a guy who survived on his power. He had one win against Chris Daukaus, which Chris Daukaus got fraud checked in the UFC. He is, and I was never too high on Chris Daukaus myself, but the guys he's lost to be fair, are very good fighters, okay? With the exception of possibly Tai Tuivasa, who is also a brawler just like him. I was still shocked that Tai Tuivasa beat him. I can't believe Tai Tuivasa beat Derrick Lewis, okay? But anyways, he's taking on Marcos Rogerio de Lima, who is a okay heavyweight. You know, like, I'm not high on him. He has a pretty good ground game. He's okay striking. Yeah, I think he's just an okay heavyweight. He's not a can like a lot of heavyweights are, okay? He's just a good fighter. I don't think he would beat anybody at the top, but he's good, okay? He's okay everywhere. Nice ground game, like I said. But he had some nice wins. Some really nice wins. Only hiccup against Blagoy-Ivanov. Not the best, but still. He came back in his last two performances and looked pretty good. Especially against Waldo Acosta, who I thought was going to absolutely destroy De Lima. He proved me wrong completely in this fight. But De Lima, look, here's the thing. De Lima's the better fighter. No matter whether it's striking, on the ground, whatever you want to do. You just can't count out Derrick Lewis. My pick is going to be Marcos Rogerio de Lima. But I understand that Derrick Lewis is that guy who, it's Derrick Lewis's entire career. He gets beat up, lands one huge shot. De Lima takes him down. Derrick Lewis does the meme where it's just, Derrick Lewis, hey, I don't feel like being on the ground anymore. Let's stand up. And then what happens after that, we don't know. It's up to Derrick Lewis. He has no cardio. They're fighting at elevation too. Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. They're fighting at elevation too. Derrick Lewis already has zero cardio. I want to bet on De Lima, but there's been a lot of times where we've seen Derrick Lewis just pull it off by one shot. I'll bring you to a fight like Curtis Blades, Volkov, anybody. We've seen this guy constantly lose and just land his giant shot. But he hasn't looked himself. He's looked worse than he always does in his last few fights. I got to go with De Lima, but the possibility for Derrick Lewis to land a shot is always there. Moving on, we have Stephen Wonderboy Thompson taking on Michel Pereira. Now, guys, this is a great fight. Great fight. It was sad that it got delayed, and we're coming in. We finally get to see this fight. So, Stephen Thompson, let me start with him. We all know the story of Stephen Thompson. Has been in the UFC forever, okay? In his last five, he looked great against Vicente Luque, looked great against Jeff Neal, but then ran into two really rough losses against two guys that grappled him. And then Stephen Wonderboy Thompson was like, hey, I don't want to fight any more wrestlers, so he fought Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland, I was so sure, and I lost a good amount of money on this fight. I was so sure that Kevin Holland was going to knock out Stephen Thompson. Oh my God, Stephen Thompson in his last fight looked like he was in his prime again. He looked like he was in his prime. He put on a clinic, looked great. Kevin Holland had nothing for him. Stephen Thompson looked fantastic at 40 years old. And I'm high on Kevin Holland, guys. He's like, I know Kevin Holland is spotty, man, but I am very high on him. I think he's a very good fighter, especially at welterweight. I thought he was going to knock out Stephen Thompson, but he put on a clinic. He's taking on Michel Pereira, who has put on quite the quiet role. He looked pretty good. Doesn't have like a win over like anybody who's absolutely fantastic. You know what I mean? Except unless you want to go back and just like take a look at like Chaos Williams he beat. You know, he's good, but I don't think he'll ever get to the top of the division, Michel Pereira. So here's the thing, okay? This fight's probably going to stay standing. Michel Pereira, we all know Michel Pereira. He likes to do the flashy things, run off the cage, do some backflips. We have seen him, point to the Diego Sanchez fight, we've seen him gas out hard. Okay, I am always incredibly reluctant to pick a 40-year-old fighter, but here's the thing, guys. They're fighting at elevation. Okay, that's a big problem. Very, very big problem. Wonderboy put on a clinic in his last fight. This fight's going to stay standing. Wonderboy is not close to retiring yet. He looked great. This fight's going to stay standing. Michel, we've seen gas out before. at elevation, and we've seen him expend himself doing jumps, putting everything into his shots. Because of that reason, I think Michel Pereira is going to have a very strong first round, maybe even first few minutes. And I think Wonderboy is going to catch him while he's trying to do something fancy. He's going to catch him at every point in the fight. Assuming Wonderboy's cardio's there, at 40 years old, it makes me worry. I think Wonderboy's going to piece him up. I really believe that. Michel Pereira is going to get tired. Wonderboy might even find a knockout. I like Wonderboy a lot in this particular matchup. Even if it wasn't at elevation, guys, I would pick Wonderboy to win this fight. I wouldn't be so confident, but I think all the stars are aligning for Stephen Wonderboy Thompson to get a nice win here. And honestly, I hope he retires because there's not a lot of fighters like this is a good matchup for him. A very, very good matchup. I like him a lot in this fight. Give me Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, even though he's 40 years old. One of my favorite fighters ever. I hope he wins. Moving on to the next fight, we have Michael Chiesa versus Kevin Holland. Two fighters I'm a big fan of. Michael Chiesa is one of my favorite fighters, man. I really, really like this dude. Okay, Michael Chiesa, coming into the UFC, looked very good. Looked very promising. He's had his ups, he had his downs. But let's take a look at his last fight, okay? Diego Sanchez, not surprising there. Rafael Dos Anjos still going strong today. I still consider it a good one. Neil Magny, I think is also a very good one. He's looked good, but the problem is, his last two fights, Vicente Luque beat him up. Sean Brady beat him up. Sean Brady completely controlled him, okay? He hasn't looked good in his two fights. And now, 1 year, 7 months ago. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. And here's the thing. Michael Chiesa has been out for a long time. He's 35 years old. Cuts a ton of weight. This dude kills himself to cut weight. And he's fighting at elevation. I don't like how that is for him. He's taking on Kevin Holland, and I just talked about Kevin Holland, okay? I was so sure he was going to win against Stephen Thompson. I was so sure about it. Okay, but even before that, Kevin Holland, he's been spotty, man. He's been very spotty. He's had really nice wins. Actually, I believe Oliveira was the first fight at this weight at welterweight. Since he's moved down to welterweight, I've been very high on him. He looked great against these two. I got that right. Khamzat Chimaev, no shocker there. Short notice, make of that what you will. I can't believe he lost Stephen Thompson. I was happy to see Wonderboy win, but I can't stop talking about that, man. Anyways, then he beat Santiago Ponzinibbio. I feel like I have a good gauge on Kevin Holland. It's like he'll beat people like Michael Chiesa. And I don't mean to say like Michael Chiesa isn't a good fighter. I'm saying like Kevin Holland will run into problems at the absolute top of the division and Michael Chiesa is not there. Michael Chiesa, here's the thing. Kevin Holland obviously has a problem with his ground game, okay? Michael Chiesa's strength is the ground game. Michael Chiesa's been away for too long, and I don't know how much he's putting into training anymore. I know he's been doing very well announcing. He's been doing a fantastic job. We haven't seen a lot from Michael Chiesa. He hasn't looked good in his last two fights. I can't trust him to look good here, man. Kevin Holland's on a roll. Kevin Holland's powerful. Michael Chiesa cuts a ton of weight here to make welterweight. Kevin Holland will probably chin him. Very, very strong reach advantage. I like Kevin Holland a lot in this matchup, guys. I really do. I'll be cheering for Michael Chiesa. He's one of my favorite fighters, man. But I don't see a world, like I can't see Michael Chiesa getting a hold of him and dragging Kevin Holland to the ground. I feel like he'll scramble himself out of it. Even if that happens. You know? I feel like he'll be bigger. I feel like he'll be stronger. He'll definitely be longer. He'll be more powerful. I think this is completely set up for Kevin Holland to win. Although I'll be cheering for Michael Chiesa, I got Kevin Holland in this matchup. Give it to me. Knockout. Moving on to the next fight, we have Tony Ferguson versus Bobby Green. How long has it been since Tony Ferguson fought? 10 months ago. It's been a little while, eh? I knew it's been a little while, but here's the thing, guys. All right. Tony Ferguson, he had one of the biggest fall from graces of all time. Justin Gaethje destroyed him. Then it's just been completely downhill from there. Granted, he's fought great opponents, okay? These four opponents have been looked good, even looked good against Michael Chandler, okay? But then Nate Diaz. The problem was this fight. I'll talk about it more in a second. Let's talk about Bobby Green. So Bobby Green had a little bit of a career resurgence. He's had really nice wins against Ali Quinta, and then he's been very active too, Bobby Green, which I really like from him. But then he also ran into two really rough problems against Islam Makhachev and Drew Dober. He was piecing up Drew Dober. He was looking good, but he got caught. I think Drew Dober is a lot better than most people think. So I don't hold these two losses really hard against him. Then he won his fight against Jared Gordon. You know, kind of. They clashed heads, and Bobby Green didn't get the win for that. So he could be coming off of a win, but I mean, like, it was a clash of heads. I don't know, man. I don't know what to think about it. That's besides the point. I don't take Bobby Green's last three fights, like, too highly is my point. I think Bobby Green is a good fighter. Kind of like what I just talked about with Michael Chiesa, actually. One of the guys who's very good, but he runs into a problem when he gets to the top of the division. Tony Ferguson, 39 years old, and this is what I want to talk about. This fight's the problem. even before that, okay, he had a bad loss against Justin Gaethje. But then if you want to take a look at these fights against Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush, two absolutely fantastic opponents. Look what Beneil and Charles have gone to do since this fight, right? They both look great. Michael Chandler, he looked good against Michael Chandler. This one, Nate Diaz, he did not look good at all in this fight. Not one little bit. That's my problem. He looked old. He looked slow. His movement wasn't there. And Nate Diaz beat him. Nate Diaz is washed. Okay? I know there's a lot of Nate Diaz fans out there, but Nate Diaz is washed. I don't like that for him. I don't like that at all. He hasn't looked good. Bobby Green is going to piece up Tony Ferguson. Bobby Green is going to box his face off and probably knock him out. Bobby Green still looks fast. Bobby Green is still powerful. He's getting up there in age. But Bobby Green, man, lock of the week for Bobby Green. Tony Ferguson, 39 years old, hasn't looked good at all. This should be the end of Tony Ferguson. He shouldn't be fighting. Give me Bobby Green. He's going to end Tony Ferguson. I know not a lot of people like to hear that about Tony Ferguson, but Tony Ferguson is getting ended here. Moving on to the co-main event, we have Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira. Guys, I don't know what to think about this one. Okay, Jan Blachowicz, he has had a career resurgence. Looked very good. He beat Dominic Reyes. Israel Adesanya looked great in that fight. Then had a rough loss against Glover Teixeira, but Glover, the ageless wonder in Glover Teixeira. So make of that what you will. Glover went on to be champion, and he's a great fighter, Glover. One of my favorite fighters of all time. Then he was losing the fight to Alexander Rakic, but then Rakic injured his leg. He got lucky in this fight, Jan Blachowicz. So you could be looking at him coming off of two rough performances. Magomed Ankalaev. Honestly, the thing is, either guy could have won this fight, to be honest with you. The point is with this, guys, in these last two fights, Jan Blachowicz is 40 years old, and his age has been showing. He's not this. I don't believe he's the same guy we saw against Glover, Israel, and Dominic Reyes. I don't believe he's the same guy that we saw that had the career resurgence and became champion. I believe his age is showing, and that's why I got to go with Alex Pereira. Coming to the UFC, he looked great. He looked great. Was storming through guys, right? Except, ran into a little hiccup, but then Sean Strickland is where everybody started paying attention to him. Israel Adesanya beat him, although he was losing the fight, but still looked good. And guys, this fight against Israel Adesanya just 2 months ago, and this is a problem. Okay? Big problem. Israel Adesanya knocked him out 2 months ago. Jan Blachowicz has incredible power. That could be a problem. But the reason that he lost this fight, he was looking good and he was winning. He was looking fantastic. He got overconfident. I imagine that's going to be under control here. This is a 50-50 fight, guys. There's just so many things to consider. They're fighting at elevation. We know probably Alex Pereira will be okay, but Jan Blachowicz, he's looked slow in times of recent. 40 years old. I don't like that at elevation at all. I keep bouncing around here. The Jan Blachowicz is the guy who's so good at checking leg kicks. Alex Pereira is so good at throwing leg kicks and vice versa. They both have great kickboxing. Alex Pereira could have a problem with the ground game. Jan Blachowicz showed in his Israel Adesanya win. Where was it? Israel Adesanya win. He has a ground game, and that's not the only fight he showed. Alex Pereira has Glover Teixeira in his corner, who is now full-time coaching him. Glover Teixeira beat Jan Blachowicz. That insight could be very good. Plus, Glover is retired now. He is full-time coaching Alex Pereira. There's so many things to take a look at. Plus, Alex Pereira was knocked out 2 months ago. How's his chin going to be? How's the weight difference going to be? Alex Pereira has been fighting at middleweight since he came in MMA. He's at light heavyweight now. Will his chin be better? There's so many questions, guys. There are so many questions here that I don't know what to say. Jan has the incredible power, man. I don't know. What a tough fight to pick. Pereira. I don't know, guys. I don't know, man. This is about as 50-50 as a fight as you can get, in my opinion. There are so many things that you need to take into consideration. MMA math doesn't even work, man. If you had a gun to my head, I pick Alex Pereira just because. I will maybe Jan's age and the elevation, that's probably the biggest thing to take a look at. But there's so much more to look into. 50-50 fight completely to me. I think you are crazy if you are betting on this fight. Give me Alex Pereira just because I need to make a pick for the video. But 50-50. Moving on to the main event, we have Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje 2 for the vacant BMF title. I hate the BMF title, but that's not even what we're talking about. So guys, this fight, they fought so many years ago. And long story short, Both guys had their moments, but Dustin Poirier pulled off the win and looked fantastic doing so. He finished Justin Gaethje. So Dustin Poirier, right? He seems like he's getting towards the end of his career, but we'll talk about that, okay? So he had that war against Dan Hooker in his last fight. Looked so good in that fight, back and forth, back and forth. It's the story of Dustin Poirier, man. He's coming off and having his insane wars, but then he had the 2 wins over Conor McGregor. Looked fantastic in that, but Conor McGregor isn't the same fighter. That's the problem, right? But then he lost to Charles Oliveira, where he did have his moments, but Charles Oliveira was better. But I see no issue in losing to Charles Oliveira, man. There's no problem with that there, so you might as well just erase that. That's like losing to Khabib, but we'll talk about that with Justin Gaethje. Then he beat Michael Chandler in a fight where that went exactly as I expected. Dustin Poirier would win. I just didn't expect it to come from submission, to be honest with you. But Justin Gaethje, man. Justin Gaethje has looked very good in his last fight. Tony Ferguson, of course, where he changed Tony Ferguson. Dustin Poirier, it seems like both guys have been relatively inactive, but of course Dustin Poirier has been more active than Justin Gaethje. He lost to Khabib Nurmagomedov. I look at it the same way. I see a loss to Charles Oliveira here. No issue. Might as well erase it. Pretty much everyone will lose to them, okay? My point is, it's like nothing to take away from these guys. That's what I mean when I say this. Then he beat Michael Chandler. One of the greatest fights of all time. Fight went as advertised. Then same thing. Charles Oliveira. Common opponent. You know, both guys lost to Khabib. Both guys lost to Charles Oliveira. No shame at all. Doesn't take away from them. But then I was very confident that Rafael Fiziev would beat Justin Gaethje. I thought it'd be too technical, too fast for him. But Justin Gaethje reminded all of us what an animal he is. Justin Gaethje just changed Rafael Fiziev's face. Looked very, very good in this fight. So, they fought before, and it was a war. Guys, if you take a look at Dustin Poirier, and this isn't the first time you're hearing this, okay? This is a very common thing that's brought up. Dustin Poirier is the same guy that fought Justin Gaethje all those years ago. Dustin Poirier is still winning. He's still a fantastic fighter. But Dustin Poirier is the same guy. Boxing heavy, he can do anything. Brawl, no problem brawling. He'll usually come out on top of those brawls. Justin Gaethje is a completely different fighter and vastly improved than the first time that they fought Dustin Poirier. They are different fighters now. Justin Gaethje is infinitely better than when he fought Dustin Poirier, and he had very good moments against Dustin Poirier. Another thing to note, Dustin Poirier seems like, and I don't know how much you want to take a look into this one, but I think it's worth mentioning. Dustin Poirier seems to be, with the way he's talking, I don't know how motivated he is anymore, especially after the recent loss to Charles Oliveira. He seems like he's getting towards the end of his career. He wants fun fights. He wants fights that scare him like Justin Gaethje, okay? So make of that what you will. But Justin Gaethje's still in it. He still wants to make one more run for the title. This dude is incredibly hungry to win this fight. Last thing to note, and I think this is very, very important. Like I've been talking about all card, this fight is at elevation. That's a problem. A lot of fighters gassed out there. Justin Gaethje trains at elevation. He's used to it, and he already has good cardio. Dustin Poirier, how good is he going to be at elevation? How long is he moving there in training? That's going to be incredibly important, especially because these guys are going to get into an insane war. I trust Justin Gaethje in this fight because he's comfortable at elevation. He won't be a changed fighter. Justin Gaethje is infinitely better. He's very much more technical now. He's powerful. He lands his shot precisely. And I think he's going to beat Dustin Poirier. Am I confident in this? Not necessarily. I'm like 70-30 in this fight for Justin Gaethje, but I'm picking him to win. I think all the signs are kind of pointing towards Justin Gaethje right now, and I think Dustin Poirier, we're going to see have a hiccup, and Dustin Poirier might call it quits after that, or move up to 170. I like Justin Gaethje a lot in this matchup. He's hungry, trains at elevation, improved, very technical. I feel like he could out-technique Poirier. I like Justin Gaethje a lot in this matchup, especially at elevation. I'm going to pick him to win. I have a good feeling about Justin Gaethje. So guys, that's going to do it for this video, though. Let me know what you thought about my picks down below, and I'd love to know what you think down below afterwards, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, let me know what your picks are down below. If you'd like to continue watching the Clembat channel, there'll be 2 videos on screen for you to check out right now. Check them out. I will see you either there or in the next video, guys. Take care.